Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my reasoning behind the matches I'm making. It's a little bit different for everybody, but there is a bigger picture here. I'm just getting into this hobby, and one of the first things that was told to me was I should go out and buy 2 or 3 brothers from one established breeder that's won a bunch of shows, and that would be how I would start my line. In other words, take somebody else's accomplishment, breed it to a couple of different females, inbreed them, and end up with exactly the same birds that somebody else already has. On top of that, that creates the whole inbreeding problem, which I don't like to do. Look at this thing up here. She is goofy. I don't want to inbreed the birds, because the minute you start inbreeding, the animals that you're inbreeding get smaller. I opened up cages here so that the birds could peek out and we could get a better picture of them. Look at Miss Thing here. She is so goofy. She's going to fly out of there and I'm going to have to catch her. The first thing that I did, instead of going and buying brothers from somebody who's already an established breeder, I went out and said, okay, I'm not going to inbreed, I'm going to outbreed. These birds are already so inbred that before I start trying to breed for, showable materials, what I have to do is take a bunch of birds and outbreed them. In other words, breed them to birds that they're not related to. And the best way for me to do that would be to get them from a whole bunch of different sources and never breed any 2 birds from a single source together. So that's what I've done. Now, I did get some matched pairs that I got from a single source, for instance, these 2. And I worried because they're both yellow faces. I got them from the same guy, and I thought, you know what, they look awfully like they could be brother or sister. The only thing, there are 2 reasons why I think I'm pretty safe with these 2. One, she is significantly bigger than he is. And if they were brother and sister from the same line, presumably the cock would be bigger than the hen. And the second thing is, he has a breeder's band on, and she doesn't, which would suggest that they did not come from the same place. So they're well matched, and I love that, and I think I'm pretty safe here. The same goes for these 2. I got them from the same place, but he is a 1-year-old baby with no band, and she is a 3 or 4-year-old bird with a band from a breeder. So I think I'm pretty safe in matching them. Everyone else came from different sources. These 2 right here, I've had Kelly, the female, the green, Kelly Green. She was one of the first birds I got last year, I think May or June, and she was just a baby. And I got this guy last week from a guy in San Francisco. Kelly came from a breeder in San Jose. So she does not have a band, he does have a band. So very unlikely that they're related. Blue and Fancy were some of my first birds. Blue came from a pet shop in one town, and Fancy came from a guy that calls himself a breeder, or used to. He's since stopped breeding, and she has no band. So Blue doesn't have a band either, but they came from 2 completely different sources. Blue is probably 4 years old by now. Fancy's only about 2 years old. So I think I'm pretty safe there. These 2, I got Gray from a Budgie breeder in the hobby, so he has a band on. He's a 2016 baby. Breezy has a band on from somebody that's not in the American Budgie Society. She's a different band. It's ABB or AAB or American Association of Budgie Breeders or something. So, again, pretty safe that they're not from the same breeder. These 2 up here, Sprite has a band. He's from a pretty renowned breeder around here. I found him in a pet shop. So I never met the breeder, but his band says he's from, and my friends in the hobby say, oh yeah, that's a good breeder. And Fluffy has no band on. I got her from a guy in Hayward. So these 2 up here, I did get from the same guy. I'm not happy that I have to breed them together, but they don't seem to want to breed to anyone else. And hallelujah, Cinnamon actually is sitting next to the nest box, and I saw her peeking in it. Oh my God, maybe it's going to happen. So, that's a huge consideration for me right now. I am not breeding birds that could be related to each other. Absolutely not what I want to do. So, completely different sources for these birds. That's what I'm doing. So that's one consideration when I make my matches. Second consideration, I have a lot of birds. Of course, I'm picking up birds that some breeder let go. They weren't their best birds, okay? Or sometimes they were their best birds, but they let them go when they were babies and they didn't know they were going to turn out like that. So, for instance, this pair, this male here, Sparky, is a beautiful bird. He's big, he's hunky, he's got nice feather, clearly a well-bred bird. Miss Kelly over here, she is, you can't tell right now because she's kind of bent over, but she's actually a really tall female. She's at least as tall as he is. She does not have the greatest feather in the world. She is scrawny. But if you look at her mask and all the little dots, that little black dots, necklace of dots, she actually has a really nice mask. And her height, her tallness is a good thing. So I'm going to take her and breed her to a male that has great feather and a bulky body and see if I can come up with a baby that's nice and tall with a good mask and a nice bulky body with better feather. Am I going to get this immediately in one breeding? No. But I'm going to pick the best thing these two can produce and breed it to the best thing that matches it from some other pair. These two right here are a beautiful match. I already bred them once, and I got very close to what I was looking for, but not quite. And although these two birds are both about the same size, the male got a little bit bigger. So they have good size on them, they have good shape on them. Their feather is not perfect. The cinnamons tend to be kind of finer feathered, and they're both cinnamon. But his feather is better than hers, so, you know, we'll see what we come up with. These two right here are massive birds. That female weighs 90 grams. She's huge. Show budgies can weigh anything from 50 grams to over 100, but she's the biggest bird I've found at 90 grams. And he is no runt either. He weighs about 79, he's almost 80 grams. They both got nice big bodies, just hefty birds, making nice big babies. Neither one of them have great feather. So I'm going to be taking their babies and breeding them to other birds that may not have the size, but have really nice feather. So that's what I'm looking for there. I'm also going to do a yellow-faced strain. These two eventually are going to throw me a nice, big, hunky, double-factor yellow-faced too. And when I get it, I'm going to breed it to Fancy and Blue's baby. They're going to throw me... Some of these babies will be normal, because Blue's are normal. Fancy is a yellow-faced 2 single-factor, so they'll throw some single-factor babies. Fancy's undersized. She's been sickly her whole life. I think it's because of the giardia, but she has really nice feather. Just nice texture, nice fluff, lots and lots of feather. She has a really long tail when it's there. She molted it, but Blue also has a really nice long tail. And he has a nice little crown on the top of his head, but the rest of his feather isn't great. The thing that I like about Blue is, look at the height on that bird. He is tall. He's a big guy. And that's what I want. I want Fancy's nice fancy feather and her pretty yellow face on a nice big tall bird like him. These two up here, both opalines. Frost is a beautiful bird. He's got fantastic feather. He's really tall. He's not too hunky, though. He's a little scrawny. Cinnamon, on the other hand, has a great big breast on her, but her feather's a little weak. So I'm going to be looking for his feather on a bird that's got a little more hunk to it, hanging on, but keeping his height. These two right here are kind of interesting. If you just look at them at first glance, it looks like Sprite is bigger than Fluffy. He stands up really straight and tall. He has this really long tail. But Sprite is actually a scrawny little bird underneath that. He has a nice feather, but he's scrawny. He's skinny. He stands up straight, though. He's nice and tall, and look at that tail. On the other hand, Fluffy is a huge female. She's, again, way up there in the 80s as far as how many grams she weighs. But what happened with that tail, man? It's too short. She has dense feathering, but her feathers are not very long. So I'm looking to get better, her big body, his better feathering. And, you know, I may have to breed him 2 or 3 times before I find the baby that I'm looking for. But that's fine. And these two down here, this is Breezy. She's kind of hiding over here. Breezy has a beautiful shape to her. She has a nice big breast. She has a nice little poof on the top of her head. That mask she's got goes on for days. Nice shape to her, and she's very poofy on the feather. But she's a little. Even though she's a hunky little thing, she only weighs about 58, a little, right around 60 grams. As you can see, Gray is a great big tall guy. Let me back up a little bit. And he has that nice long tail going. He's a little scrawny though. So again, I'm hoping for some middle ground on body shape here. Neither one of these birds have fantastic feather, but you know, give me the body shape and I'll find a bird with good feather for them. Her feather is a little better than his, I think. But on the other hand, she's kind of a pinhead, and he has a great big fluffy head. So we'll see what we get. And again, I may have to breed them 2 or 3 times before I find a baby that gets the size and the height, the body shape, and a nice little bit of feather going, you know? But that's okay. I'm sure they'll be willing to do that. So that's my reasoning on the breeding thing. I'm mixing and matching, and I'm outbreeding. I'm breeding birds that are not 100% show quality to birds with complementary traits. And then once I have a bunch of babies to choose from, I'll pick the best babies. I'll pick great big babies and match them up with babies that aren't big enough but have beautiful feather. I'll pick super tall, scrawny birds and breed them to short, stubby, hefty birds with a big breast. I'm going to mix and match until I get what I'm looking for and move forward with there. And I'm going to do it with genes from a whole bunch of different places so that I don't get the inbreeding thing. So that's the plan as far as who's getting matched with who. And then, of course, a part of this is who the birds will breed with. These two up here have given me absolute fits. Absolute fits. He gets rejected again and again by females, and she rejects males again and again. I think I might have finally found a situation where they're going to actually get something done here. But at this point, I didn't really get to pick. The good news is that Frost is so beautiful, it almost doesn't matter what I breed him to. So I'll be happy with whatever I get. Okay, so that's my reasoning behind these matches. Right there. Look at that. Give me that nice long mask of hers. He has a nice mask too, actually, for a Spangle. And look at those nice long tails. She's kind of hunched over right now, but this girl is tall. She's like Sprite up there. He looks so tall. Look at that great big long tail. We want that tail because these birds are supposed to be 9 or 10 inches long, and if they have a little short tail, they're not going to make it. So Fluffy's a beautiful bird, but what happened to that tail, man? It's tiny. We're going to have to work on that. Okay, so that's that.